Okay, so let's go back to our gallery and we are going to get out of that. And let's just start with a new paper. Okay, now again, 2 fingers firm to kind of turn your paper. I'm just using an 8.5 by 11 size paper. And I want to show you a couple things. So if you're going to be writing and you're just going to be doing Asemic writing and you don't really care about the size, if it's lined up or anything, you can just write as it is, or you can use a drawing guide if you kind of want to have your spacing laid out for you. So if you, for that, you would click on your tool, and then we want to go to Canvas, and there's a drawing guide here. And in that drawing guide, you are able to, if you go to Edit Drawing Guide, we can actually adjust the grid size. So depending on what you're doing, you can make your grid larger or smaller. You can also make the thickness of the lines of your graph wider, and also the opacity. If you just kind of want to see it, but you don't want it to distract you from your drawing, you would turn it down a little bit. So let's just do that. And let's see, maybe we make it just a little smaller. That's good. And then click on Done. So now I have this larger graph that I can kind of use as a guide. So that's just something we didn't talk about in the last video. So for Asemic writing, you want to, for me, it's easier to kind of connect my brain to my pen if I actually think of something that I want to write and just do it kind of messy. So I would just maybe, well, we need to select a pen first, I guess. I'm calling it a pen. That is just because when I draw with it, I'm seeing ink. And it's called a pencil, but in my brain, it wants to call it a pen. And then this looks like a brush. And they actually call some of them, it's a brush library. Some of them are called pens. So that if I use that term, I mean the same thing. So for stencils, as I mentioned in the last video, monoline is a good one, has a nice rounded edge, but you can see it's fairly thin. Script I like because it has a tapered end and you have more range to adjust that. So I think for this one, I'm going to use the script pen. And again, if I click on that again, I can, try it out and make some adjustments to it. So under stabilization, I kind of like to have a little bit of that, maybe 20-ish for this. And then you can kind of see what happens is it's kind of dragging. If I have none, it's really kind of just what I'm writing. If I have a little bit, for this, I don't want to have too much of that drag. And then motion filtering, you can adjust that. You see how it really drags? I don't like that at all. Not for actually writing. See, it doesn't feel real. So I don't like to have any motion filtering for that. Expression you can kind of play around with too, and see how you like, how the feel of that is. So we're just going to call that done and then get out of that. Okay, so let's see the size of my brush. That's pretty thin. So let's adjust this up a little bit. That's also pretty thin. Let's try one more. That's kind of nice. I could even maybe go one higher. I kind of like that in between, the thinner one. So let's go back down. And again, if you remember, you can save this size by clicking on it, and I have it saved. So if I didn't have it saved, it'd have that plus. So just hit the plus and it will give you that. That way you can always get back to the one you were doing. If I wanted to get rid of these so that they don't confuse me, I would just hit on that and it goes away. So we were on this one, I think. Okay, so in my mind, I'm just going to, I should move my pad so you can still see. Okay, so in my mind, I'm going to think of something that I want to write just to help it flow for me. And again, it can be anything. So we want everything to kind of be connected so that we'll have one piece at the end. You don't have to worry about this so much because of the way we're doing this. We're going to need to make some cleaning up, do some cleaning up. So just kind of start writing. I've got stuff on my iPad there. So let's see. And you don't have to do this the same direction. It can be, you can do from this way if you want it to. Okay, so we have something on our paper. It looks like a mess, but that's fine. I wanted this so that we can do some cleaning up and you kind of see the things you need to look for. So because this is the kind of stencil where the black is what's left behind, that means all the white's falling out. So these complete circles, you don't worry about those because those will be cut out. So that's fine. It's not like the reverse, which we'll show you later. So I kind of just look, first of all, for areas where I know it's going to be a teeny tiny little hole. I need to either have it be bigger so it cuts out, or I need to close it up. So sometimes I kind of go through first and just do those. I may go back and make them a bigger hole after I see the whole thing, but I might just go through with my pen and close those up, those little tiny ones that are going to bug me. And like I said, I may go reverse that later, but this just kind of gives me an overall look because maybe I don't mind having those if they're evenly spaced all over my design. So that's just kind of a personal preference. But those will end up, when you use them on a gel plate, as, you know, a solid space. So I might not like that. So once I've kind of done that with the teeniest small pieces, then I'll go back and kind of start looking for things that are loose and straggling, because those are going to be little floppy bits. So I'm going to end up putting this onto my Cricut Design Space. So for this type of stencil, you don't have to put a frame around it because it's all one piece. But if you want to do that, if you have a lot of these little flippy things, then you might want one. So you kind of just need to think about that as you're cleaning this up. I think I'm probably not going to put a frame around this. So I would want to do things like, let's just start at the top of this. And I see this little bit. It could stay there or not, but it's easy to just get on your eraser and just kind of get rid of that. And you can really zoom in. See, I accidentally redid that by how I touched. So you can really zoom in and get a nice edge on anything. This is fine. That's a decent enough size for a cutout. This I might not want because it's a big long straggle, so I can either just shorten it, or maybe I want to kind of attach it, if I have my brush, attach it to that one, and then I get rid of this one. So I think I want a bigger eraser for the moment. And then this would be floppy. So if I wanted, you know, to really have it all be attached, I could go back and maybe do that instead. And that's not very smooth. That's not very smooth. Maybe to there. And then that would keep it from being floppy. And then you just kind of continue to look for things that, you know, might need to be cleaned up. Maybe I don't want this over here. I don't really need that. So I could use the eraser and get rid of that. Maybe I leave that one. Maybe I want, this would be floppy, this little bit here, because it's not attached to this. So I would just use my pen again and just kind of try to continue that and make it look like it was part of it. I might look at this and say, I want that open completely. So I'm on my I might want it to be a little smaller. Oops. And just open that up a little bit. And if you do too much, you can go back to your pen and then just make it smooth. And maybe I want to get rid of that one. Let's see. And maybe I want to open this up a little bit. Too much. Maybe I want to get rid of that. I'm not going to be too picky, but you just kind of start. Actually, I do want to get rid of that. And I do want to open this up a little bit. Now this opening here doesn't have anything that really connects it. So I might want to actually make these two connect. So I don't have that be floppy. These are going to kind of be floppy, but that doesn't bother me too much. This one maybe I want to open up again. Maybe this too. Actually, maybe I get rid of that whole thing. And then, oops. And then looking at it, this kind of bothers me here, so maybe I get rid of this. And that, maybe I get rid of this. Anything that just looks kind of odd, you know. And maybe this one here. maybe this one, maybe smooth that a little bit. Maybe attach these two. So you get the idea. You just want everything to kind of be connected. You want big enough holes, big enough openings. So if I wanted this, maybe I want to go ahead and open this whole thing up more. Again, going back with my pen and evening out my lines. But maybe I even want to just include that and then go back and clean it up somehow. Just so that when you kind of stand back and look at it, you like the balance of open spaces, large spaces, the thicknesses of your lines and that sort of thing. So I'm not going to finish this whole thing because it, you know, I get too fixated on it. So I'm just going to leave that. Then the next thing that we would do obviously is go back to our tool here, and then we're going to go to share as a PNG. I'm going to save it to my images, and then I'm going to get out of this and go to Adobe Capture, and we'll get out of that. I'm going to import image from my camera roll, and it will be the last thing there, and it's going to pull that up. And then I'm on shape, so I'm going to click on this check mark, and I'm going to do my smooth on. Now you can refine this from here. If I wanted to open up, if I see something here that I didn't see in Procreate, I can get an eraser and make it much smaller and maybe erase that there. It's easier to do it in Procreate. I think you have more control over your tools, but you can do it from here. So I'm not gonna, we'll go back and put that back. So you would go to smooth on, and it's gonna smooth all those edges so they're not pixelated. So that'll just take a second. And then I look at it, and again, it gives me some of those weird sharp things again. So if I wanted to go back and refine and maybe connect something, fix something here, I can do that if it's pretty simple. And then you just save that. And I'm going to save it. I'm not even going to change its name. And then I'm going to go here and share that. I'm going to export it as an SVG, and then I can send it to my computer and then go ahead and put it in my Cricut. We've done that in the last several videos, how to do that to clean up the edges, and the rest is the same. So we would import it, then upload it from our Cricut. So let's move on to a different one now. Let me go back to Procreate. And we're going to go back to our gallery where I already have some Asemic writing, the Japanese Asemic writing started. So we'll click on that.